This Pisces lunar eclipse is massive, and I do not say that lightly. There are multiple larger cycles that are converging within this lunar eclipse that are pointing us toward a massive paradigm shift. You hear those words, paradigm shift, and they kind of sound woo woo or a little elusive, right? Like, what does that actually mean? So, today I want to go deeper into how this is actually going to show up in our day to day lives, especially because we often believe that paradigm shifts happen in these huge moments where we make this massive decision and burn everything down and start all over. It's like a big aha moment. But most of the paradigm shifts that happen in our lives are actually the result of 1,000 moments of making a different decision. And so they're not quite as loud, they're not as explosive. I often equate this to the 6th house, 12th house axis, which is very fitting for this eclipse because that is the Pisces and Virgo house, which is we often want that Pisces illumination, which is like that ayahuasca understanding, where it's just like, oh my God, it all makes sense now. And the 6th house in Virgo remind us that we can't really have those few and far between moments without doing the daily work. Virgo reminds us chop wood, carry water. That is your enlightenment. And this is what this lunar eclipse is essentially pointing you towards. If there has been any sort of imbalance between surrender and actually getting your shit together, it's going to be made very clear to you now, where maybe surrender has become avoidance or taking care of your things has become a hyperfixation, has become a control mechanism. Regardless of which axis you're falling on right now, this is kind of a correction. It's an opportunity for a correction, and it will offer you an illumination that might point you in the right direction. Now, the advice that I got was Two of Swords. So that's very interesting because the Two of Swords does not feel like it has enough information to move forward. And as we move into this eclipse, we're noticing that Mercury, the sign that rules our mind and logic and rules the sun in Virgo during this eclipse, is invisible. And until August 27th, it is combust. So it is not really strengthened right now, even though it's in its home sign of Virgo. We're going to take a look at the charts and all of that in a little bit. But as we'll see when we look at the charts, right now, the mind is not working as well. And that is on purpose. Even if you feel like your mind is on overdrive, you'll notice that if you keep trying to make decisions from a fear mindset or really just from the mind, it's going to be very scattered. You're going to be able to find a reason to go down each decision. And so the Two of Swords reminds us that sometimes we just need to pause. And when we look in the charts, we'll see that that pause is actually an invitation to listen to our intuition, our instinct. Actually, that's something that I want to talk about a little bit. Just that it's what's coming up right now is intuitive awareness, yes, but more instinctual awareness. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about just the basics here. This eclipse is happening 10:18 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time on August 27th. So you're probably hearing a lot of things about this eclipse being about release and surrender and all of these things. And I do think that's true, but because it is the end of a 2-year process that started with a first eclipse on September 17th, 2024, this is not just a release and surrender. This is sure, you're going to be illuminated something. There's a Mercury Cazimi happening right before this eclipse. The eclipse is an illumination. Pisces, it's about surrender. It's the last sign of the zodiac. It's finishing something massive. But if you're just releasing and you're not sitting down and figuring out, like, what did I learn from this? You are missing a huge piece of the puzzle because whatever's closing out now, we've been talking a lot about this recently, that there's a new identity that's emerging, not just a new decision, not just a new, way of thinking. It's a new identity. The person making the decision, that is you, is changing. So what does that actually What does that actually mean? What does that look like, right? We're going to get deeper into that. This is also happening in gate 55, line 6 in human design. This is huge. This is huge. I have a video coming out about gate 55, and I'm planning on making a lot more because gate 55, line 6 is the energy that we are moving into for the next like 50, 60 years, starting in 2027. After we've been in a certain type of energy for the last 50, 60 years, since the 1960s. And this is the beginning of a new 400 plus year cycle. So this, along with Jupiter trine Saturn, this is what I'm saying, you guys. There are larger stories converging here. It is personal, yes, but it is also showing you what needs to close out so that you can also step into this new paradigm of humanity by changing the way that you see everything and what you do with what you see. If you are living in an idealized reality, in an illusion reality, this is going to ask you to come back down to earth and see what can you control. The shadow of gate 55 is victimization. And I got the 5 of Pentacles. So I'm noticing that a lot of people are probably feeling trapped by the material realm. So that can look like money. That can look like responsibility. So maybe you have to take care of somebody, or, your job feels like it's trapping you. It feels like it's a cage, or maybe a mixture of all these things. Something in the material realm feels very heavy. But I got the Page of Wands, but there's a spark of illumination, but also feeling like maybe you just can't quite move forward on this thing, and that can feel very frustrating. But there is a cycle that is completely ending. And this is a cycle of an old identity who believes that it needs to struggle, that it believes that it has no agency outside of what is happening in their lives. Oh my gosh, I need to move this. This is the shadow of victimization, and this is going to become a massive, massive theme over the next 400 years. And we're going to start seeing that even more starting in February 2027. So I want to invite that this is a time that you're releasing something and also recognizing, what did I learn? What did I learn about this axis where this eclipse has been happening for 2 years? Where have I been not trusting enough? Where have I been trusting too much? And who is making the decisions now? I'm going to show you guys the human design chart first because this is really important to notice. So I have notes here, I have notes that I want to talk about some things, but I'm really allowing myself, I always kind of allow myself to go and talk about what feels like it needs to come through. I don't script my videos. I really like this feeling of like I'm talking to you guys, and because here's the thing. When I'm in a session, I can't script that. When I'm in a workshop and someone comes to me and they ask me a question, I can't script that. So this is a way that I can give you a feel of who I am when there's no script. I don't think scripting is bad, or like, reading or whatever, but it's just, this is why I like to do this, which by the way, I'm opening up my one-on-ones for a limited availability for the waitlist first. So if you're not on my waitlist, you're not going to get first dibs on my limited availability. The waitlist is down below. I'm opening it up August 26th. So get on that if you're interested. Okay, so let's take a look at what is going on in the human design and why I'm really allowing myself to just flow with this, because this is what I want to embody, what the time is asking of us right now. When we're looking at this human design chart, you'll note that we've got the head and we have the ajna. These are kind of our mental awareness centers. Nothing is defined. We have no planets, no anything in these areas. We have 3 channels defined. That is quite rare. That means there's a lot of strength here. But where is that strength? In the throat, in the spleen, in the root, and in the solar plexus or the emotional center, not in the mind. And Mercury is invisible, right? And combust until we have that Cazimi on August 27th. So, and even then it's still invisible after and during. The throat is expression, communication. It's not always words though. It can also be artistic expression. The spleen is instinctual awareness. This channel is called the channel of the brainwave. It is a very, very intuitive channel. So it is listening to the intuition and expressing from the intuitive awareness, the instinctual awareness. The spleen's all about safety. So it's about physical safety. So listening, and the spleen is very, very quiet. So it's like listening to something that the mind doesn't even have time to comprehend. So you may be making a lot of decisions right now that don't make logical sense. That is the point. That is the point. Then we've got these two. The root is about taking action, pressure to act. This is emotional awareness. So right now you're being asked to become very aware of your emotional world and become an observer and know when to act. In 2027, there's a massive change happening according to human design with our emotional awareness as a collective. So this is a huge foreshadowing. Whatever's coming up in this eclipse right now is a massive foreshadowing of what needs to be released in order for you to become the type of person who can contribute and participate in life in a meaningful way and stop becoming the person who holds themselves back through becoming a victim to the material reality. You know, sometimes I get comments on my channel like, "Oh, well, I'm not choosing this. My life is hard. I have to survive." Yeah, no shit. Life is hard. You don't think I struggle? Right? Like everybody's doing the best that they can. This is not about saying that struggle is not real or that material hardships are not real. It's saying, what can you control within them? And will you fall within, are you committed to the victim consciousness? Are you committed to that? Day in, day out, again and again. Because we all have bad days, right? I have days I wake up and I'm like, I'm a freaking victim, you know? But it's about resilience. And where do we get our resilience? It's not really through the mind. The spleen really thrives on somatic work. You don't have your chart, you can get on my website. The spleen really thrives with somatic work because it allows you to connect to safety in a whole new way. Then we've got the emotional awareness, and this is actually what is connected to our nervous system in human design. So this is really asking us to learn how to become observers of our emotional world rather than reactors. You are free when you are just being. And you are learning to go with the highs and lows of the emotional world rather than always feeling like you are a victim of your emotions, of the external material reality. I have a video coming out about this where I talk about this more, but I'm very passionate about talking about this because I have an emotional authority. So this is something that I have had to learn and experiment a lot with. And I'm really excited when I get a chance to teach this to people. So we're starting with the human design here. And I also want you to just take note right now of how many sixes you see in this second column after the decimal. That is very important. These are the kind of things I'm always looking at. What patterns am I seeing in this chart? And this is a line 6. And line 6 is about embodiment. Not knowing, not thinking, oh, I know I should be doing this. Living. It's about living. And so this lunar eclipse is going to point out where you are not responding from this new sense of self. Where you are responding from the old sense of self. So just story time about this. I signed up for a meditation retreat, silent meditation retreat, and I was on the wait list. And it was a teacher I wanted to work with. I live in Colorado. This was in Massachusetts. And 2 days before the retreat, I got an email saying, you're off the wait list. And I was like, oh shit. I didn't think I was going to get off the wait list. And you have to pay a deposit. And so once you're in, you lose your deposit if you don't go. And I was like, okay, Virgo aspect, being practical, Virgo is my second house. I'm like, well, I already paid for some of it, right? And there was this desire of like wanting to go because I love meditation retreats. They're like my favorite thing. I'm pretty sure I was a monk in my last life, a Venus South Node in the 12th house, but I didn't want to go. And it was so weird. And so when I sat with my body, I noticed that when I thought about not going, there was some anxiety there, but then there was also this like resoluteness. And when I thought about going, there was a lot of anxiety. I remember having this feeling where it was like, oh, this is what force feels like in my body. Because my identity for a long time has been the person who always fixes everything. Very Virgo, right? I'm not a Virgo, but very Virgo. Like jazz saves the day. You know, I can even think in so many times in my childhood where I just used so much force. I used so much will to get things done that other people were not willing to do. And that was something that was complimented a lot to me by my family. It was something that was really supported by people in my family. Like, you want to get it done, give it to Jazz. She will fight through every obstacle to get it done. And so on the outside, you're like, wow, that's a great quality to have. And it is, but not if I'm not choosing my battles. So this old identity of the person who forces everything to work when her mind says this is a good idea, that was who I was trying to make the decision from. That was the identity. And after I sat with myself, and also there was like a whole thing, like they made an exception for me because I was going to come a day late. And so I didn't want to disappoint them. That's another aspect of my identity. It's like someone's working hard to like get you in. Don't disappoint them. Don't change your mind. Don't be an inconvenience. But my body said no. And I know my body well enough now that I'm pretty good at deciphering a no and yes. Because sometimes contraction or anxiety isn't necessarily a no. And so instead, I, for the next week, made my own meditation schedule of walking and sitting meditation. And I said, instead of having someone impose like the meditation schedule, I'm going to use this time to become more self-led in that. So for the next week, from this, while I would have been at the retreat, I am not doing all day meditation like I would, but I created a little mini schedule and I told myself 30 to 60 minutes of Dharma talk every day. So it allowed me to step into a new sense of self where I get to also lead my life. And I don't have to force things just because I should want this. Why don't I want this, right? That's the mind. The body was saying, no, I don't want to go. Like, it's too fast. I'm also not a very spontaneous person like that. I don't like making like last minute decisions. And it was very last minute, right? But the mind was like meditation and Massachusetts. And, like you get fed amazing food 3 times a day and you just meditate. And it's so amazing, the self-inquiry. But I didn't want to go. So this is the type of thing I'd be looking for right now in your life. Where are you being offered an opportunity to respond differently? Where are you being offered the opportunity? I want you to let me know down in the comments what situation's coming up. And I also want to know, where do you have Pisces and Virgo in your chart? Because that can give you some clues, right? About where this might be happening. The person that you are becoming is not going to respond the same way that you've been responding the last 2 years and probably longer, right? So just getting a good grip on that. Now, let's go to the astrology, where we usually start. Okay, let's look at the astrology. Okay, so lunar eclipse, Virgo, Pisces, Uranus square, electrifying. This is really, to me, what is showing us kind of this new paradigm energy from the astrology standpoint. Because that 55 line 6 is, like I said, where we're going to be for like 60 years, I think it's going to be. I actually made a video about that. It's called Why Knowing Is Not Enough Anymore. It's in my human design playlist where I talk about that a little bit more. So that, from that perspective, is really foreshadowing that energy that's upcoming in February 2027. Because once again, these cycles are cycles. So they're not just the next 2 weeks. They're going to feel very strong over the next 2 weeks, but it's going to take up to 6 months for this thing to actually really take hold. So in astrology, Uranus and Gemini squaring this lunation is really the aspect that is showing us that this is about something bigger. This is about something way, way bigger. It's a little bit of a hands-off approach here. And because we've got this Two of Swords coming through as well, there is this energy of like, you feel like you don't have all the information and you might need to pause, just like I did before I really made the decision to not go or go. I paused, sat with myself, and realized that there is no right decision. That's what a Virgo does not want to ever hear. There is no right decision. You can have all the facts and you still will never know if it was quote unquote right. So what happens to you when that uncertainty comes about? Because Virgos can be very good at, listen, planning is amazing. That's what I'm saying. This is going to show you where you need more planning. I'm seeing this in my business. It's happening in my second, eighth house axis. This is showing us where like planning needs to happen, but a lot of Virgo energy is planning to control the outcome. And that's where we lean into Pisces when it comes to the outcome. We've got this yod from Neptune, Pluto, pointing to this Sun-Mercury conjunction. As I said, this is being preceded by a Cazimi where there is a moment of clarity, especially with Mercury being in its domicile and exaltation. It's a stronger Mercury. So there is some realization you're going to be having. And, August 27th, August 28th, August 29th, about where this imbalance has been happening in your life. But this eclipse very much gives me this energy of like, stop preparing to prepare. Stop, like you're done with the perfectionism. You're done with the hyper fixation on making sure that it's the right decision. You're ready to move into something. That's what the root center in human design, this is action. Time to act. But what do we act on? If we're acting on every single emotion that comes up, we're just going to be a freaking mess. Don't ask me how I know that, okay? We've also got this impending Mars-Saturn square, which is bringing some difficulties and telling you these are two malefics in their fall. These are not happy malefics. So this is going to be very, very interesting as this comes to culmination over the next few days. Where the old ways will not work. If you're trying to force yourself like I was, over-efforting is not going to work. You got to find a new way. One thing I want to say while it's top of mind, wherever you have Mars in Cancer, this cycle is asking you to fiercely protect something in that area. Mars in Cancer is holding something important to your emotional fulfillment. What's super interesting is, oh my gosh, this thing is, I can't move it. What's super interesting is I made a video about you not being fulfilled. I made that video at the end of July because I'm experimenting with something here. And then I posted it, and an astrologer that I really enjoy, his name is Ernst Wilhelm, he made a video about this eclipse, and he was talking about how it is a part of the sorrow cycle, which I'm really looking into as well currently to see how I could use that as well in my astrology content. That this eclipse is about lack of emotional fulfillment, and his advice was to start experimenting with different ways of being and doing things. And that you're not going to know if that thing's going to work out or not. And that's just so funny because that's literally what I said in my video about the fulfillment and lack of fulfillment. And it was made weeks before that video came out. I wasn't thinking, oh, well, like, this is a sorrow cycle. And I just was like feeling what came through me and how I was feeling and how I was seeing things and interpreting certain symbols and the cycles that we're in. So this is just an invitation for you to like, not everything has to make sense. Like we're just so scared of people thinking we're nonsensical. Okay. Like what is sensical? Because when I think of sensical people, extremely sensical people, is sensical even a word? They don't lead lives that I would really want to live, right? So why do I want to appear to be like them? Just questions that I ask myself a lot when I'm dissecting conditioning. Now, this is the part that is another huge cycle that I'm going to go deeper into my Substack, by the way. So on my Substack, I will be going deeper into this and the other aspect of the human design cycle. So if you're not on my Substack, make sure you're on my Substack as well. You can subscribe down below. Paid subscribers also will be getting a somatic guided meditation to go with this eclipse, to work with the energies in the body and not just the mind. Saturn, Jupiter, trine, just days after this, being exact. It's going to happen 3 more times. That's not Saturn. Saturn's retrograde. It's going to happen 3 more times. But this is important because this is part of the 2020 cycle of the Great Conjunction with Jupiter and Saturn that started when with COVID, right? And these cycles have phases. So this is the last phase before the trine is the last phase before we get to the opposition in 2030. And oppositions show us culminations. We're going to see something come of it by 2030. So this is a beautiful time for us to focus on building something, building from a place of hope, building from a place of optimism, even if our material reality is not catching up to that yet. Something that Richard talks about in here. Like I said, I want to do another video on Gate 55 and stuff because it is just so, there's so much to go into. The mass consciousness of humanity misses one of the deepest secrets of life. On an energetic level, you do always reap exactly as you sow. It simply takes longer for this to become apparent in the material dimension. The key to the 55th shadow and its transcendence of victimization depend upon one factor: your attitude. It is not about what happens to you, it is about how you handle it. But especially what he's saying is that it takes a long time for you to see that. And so you have to be able to trust in what you're building, to connect to what it is that you're building. And that's what Jupiter Saturn trine is showing us right now. This is an easy aspect. Take advantage of that, because easy aspects, if we don't look at them and see them, they can kind of just slip through our fingers. But this is happening regardless on a collective level that we may not necessarily feel consciously. What else is happening here that I want to talk about? Yes, of course, if you have anything from 0 to 8 degrees of Pisces, Gemini, Virgo, or Sagittarius, you're going to be feeling this eclipse hitting you very, very strongly. So, squaring you, opposing, conjunction. This is going to be a huge thing in your life. So if you are one of those people, let me know what placements you have down below. I'll tell you mine. I am 8 degrees Gemini sun. So Uranus is coming right up on me. It is coming right up on me. And I feel it. And I definitely feel it. I also have a Sagittarius moon, but it's in the later degrees, 28 degrees. So I'm just a bundle of chaos. I really am. And I am really learning throughout my life how to channel that chaos into something that can help others and that can I can create something from it, right? Chaos is not inherently bad, but too much of it, then we just scatter our life force energy and we don't feel successful. We don't feel satisfied in our lives, and it can feel very, very difficult. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull a card here. I want to see if there's anything else coming through. We talked about the line 6 energy. This is about embodiment. You cannot know it anymore. Okay, you have to be able to live it, and that is harder than we think. It is not easy to make decisions that go against our sense of identity, our conscious sense of self. It is a courageous act to say, I am no longer willing to participate in life this way. Okay. Yes, a lot of line 6 in this chart, and that's the line we're entering in 2027 for several decades. The guided practice that I'm going to be sending my paid Substack subscribers, I'm going to be guiding them through this, but maybe you want to try it as well, is that, visualizing something actually leaving your body. and noticing what sensations come up when you visualize this. Because I do somatic practices. So visualization is not somatic generally, and I make it somatic so that because what often happens is people who do a lot of visualizations, they tend to like leave the body. And so it's beautiful in some regard, but we need to come into the body right now. And really in our collective, we need to come back to the body. What wants to come up? What message does this 2057 want to give us? Seven of Swords, or Seven of Wands. Seven of Wands is about protecting something. It's about holding your ground. There is something that's coming up right now around boundaries. Around boundaries. Yeah. Something like, kind of how I was talking about the decision that I made with the retreat and stuff. That was a boundary on my energy. What boundaries do you have within yourself? And how do you cultivate that? Because that one's a little bit harder because no one's really watching you. No one really knows exactly what that process looks like except for you. Because on the outside, if I went to this retreat, people would be like, wow, she's so spontaneous and she's such a risk taker. And I love that she's taking care of herself and she's going on this retreat. But internally, it was a forcing. So my boundary and protecting my energy the way that I felt like it needed to be protected, which was not going to the retreat, which probably wouldn't make a ton of sense to some people. So that's the kind of energy I'm feeling. Like there's a boundary, and it's asking you like Nine of Cups. Nine of Cups is like the wish card, the fulfillment card. Interesting. So for some of us, it might be that we have to renegotiate boundaries, which means that we might have to release some boundaries in order to allow something new to come in. But there's something about like, where have you been fighting? Where have you, like, if you think in your life right now, where are you done fighting? Where are you done forcing and pushing through? Like, if you have to force it, the deeper question is like, will that ever really bring you fulfillment? If you guys watched my video on the in between eclipses, like the energy you start something with is the energy that is infused into that thing. So if you started from this place of like, oh, I must do this because like this is the right thing to do, but it's all about scarcity and fear, is that going to lead you to fulfillment? On the other side of this situation, there is the ability for you to feel actually fulfilled, but the old ways won't cut it. That's the thing. So if you keep trying to do it the old ways, like I want you to think about how you're tackling your problems right now. Are you always doing the same thing? Okay, I'll run to my journal and I write things down, but it's just not feeling like it's fulfilling. Right? Like for me, meditation is the most fulfilling thing, meditation retreats. But right now it's saying, no, I want to be participating in life and I want to create and protect the spaces in which I can maintain that myself without having somebody else tell me. So there's a new way. I have to try a new way, right? Which is something I've never done before, which is creating my own little schedule at home. To see how that feels. Eclipses always illuminate opposites. And opposites, I have a video about this, Transformation Happens in the Middle, if you haven't seen it yet, where I talk about how we integrate oppositions by having to sit with attention. Because it's not just about balance. Because when it comes to oppositions, balance creates stuckness. Because balance makes us believe that there is a right or wrong, we have to go more this way. Oh no, we have to go more that way. But really, there's an integrated third, a this and that does not come through the mind alone. And so what a beautiful opportunity for us to practice when Mercury is invisible, to let the mind go blank a little bit so that we can lead with something else. Lead with heart, lead with intuition, lead with instinct. there's something beautiful on the other side of this for you. There's a sense of fulfillment that you don't even know is possible, but it lies on the other side of what you've been fighting for. Like, what would it feel like to just stop fighting? Just so that you can see clearly for a moment on what you can control in this situation. It doesn't mean you have to completely release it or let go of it. And then just thinking about, like, how does this fit into a larger pattern of how I've lived my life, of how I've made decisions in my life that have maybe been self-sabotage, right? That have been born of illusion because I believed that things had to be a certain way, because I believed that I was this person. And how can I find more freedom in just existing as I am right now? How can I steal those little moments of freedom, even if the material world feels like it's just unrelenting? This is pushing you into greater creative energy, Page of Wands and King of Wands. And I believe that. This is why I've been offering things like creative rewilding, safe, seen, sovereign, because I see where our collective is going. I'm very much ahead of the curve. I know that. And I used to not trust that, because it's very hard to trust being ahead of the curve because you don't see people doing things the way you do. So everyone keeps telling you the way to success is this, and you're like, but I want to do it this way. And so it becomes difficult to trust that. And I'm trusting it more and more. But yeah, this is why I offer those sorts of things, because I can see that there's a creative rewilding happening in our society, a necessary one. I actually just finalized the dates to creative rewilding. This is part of me getting my shit together. So the waitlist is down below. It's going to start September 27th. So if you want to get the early bird pricing and be the first to know, because there's always limited seats when I do these group programs, make sure you're on the wait list. Yeah, this is mature, creative energy. Like, this is on the other side of this. You're going to have to create new boundaries, new rules. And you're going to have to let your armor down in certain spaces in order to know what it even feels like to feel satisfied. And you've got to let this chapter close. It's so much deeper than any material thing you're releasing right now. It's so much deeper. If you feel like you don't have the answers yet, that's okay. Pause and realize that you might have to make a decision anyway. And that is the crux of our lives. This is the limitation of Mercury. We will not always have, we'll never have all of the facts. We'll never know everything about everything. We still have to choose how to live. So how do you want to do that? How do you want to live? And what's an action that you can take to start moving toward that? Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you next time.